Today, I'm going to show you the exact steps we took to take this brand from a 0.93 ROAS to a 4.26 ROAS. That's increasing their ROAS by 332% with only a few changes in the space of just a few months, right? We helped them go from spending 50K, 54K and generating 50K to spending only 15K and generating 63.9K. As you can see, it was massively overspending this account. It was super inefficient. And we just made sure that they increased their profit significantly on Google by making a few specific changes. And I'm going to walk you through what exactly those changes were. First of all, specific targeting. This is a really big one that we see in every single account we work in, where there's always issues with targeting. The thing with Google is if you give it too much free range, it's going to go outside of your ideal audience. It's going to spend a lot of money and it's not necessarily going to get you many conversions or much revenue back. So how do we fix this? Well, if you're running search campaigns, it's through keywords. So you need to be using negative keywords. You need to be using standard keywords in the right matching formats. So if you are using broad match and you find that in your search term report, so to view your search term report, just go to the search terms tab under insights. If you have a look at that and you find out that you're getting a lot of irrelevant traffic that isn't really very related to your brand, seems to represent low intent, then you want to make sure that you are tightening the match types on your keywords to either exact match or phrase match. You only want to use broad match if you have a lot of data in the account and you're spending a lot of ad spend on your campaigns. That's the only way that broad match will really work effectively. Otherwise, you should probably be sticking to phrase or exact. Now, if you're running shopping and PMAX campaigns with obviously shopping listings, you need to make sure that your Google Merchant Center is fully dialed in order to maximize your traffic and your ideal targeting, right? So your Google Merchant Center listings, which are your titles and your descriptions and all of your product data included, they play a very big role in how Google targets your ads. So if you have, for example, a poor quality title with only 2 words in it and very little descriptive text, very little information about your product, what you're going to find is that Google's going to struggle to show your product to the right people because it doesn't know what your product is. It determines your shopping targeting based on all the information you give it in these shopping listings. So you need to make sure that it's really high quality information at all times in your title and your description. I actually have another video on exactly how you can write these titles and descriptions for your products in a lot more detail and write them well. Please check the video out if you want a bit more information. Now, then we have demand gen and PMAX, right? So once again, PMAX falls under a few umbrellas here for targeting because it is a pretty wide-reaching campaign. But if we're looking at demand gen specifically, and again in PMAX, and even sometimes in shopping, you need to look at your signals, right? If you're finding that your campaigns are getting really poor performance, have a look at what you're steering Google towards with your signals and your audiences and whatever you're using to target the campaign. Within demand gen and PMAX alike, you can implement signals and audiences that encourage Google to steer in a certain direction. This can obviously help you get much higher quality traffic. And as a result of getting higher quality traffic, you can get much more purchases at the same amount of spend and a much higher return on ad spend. All right. Once you've got your targeting nailed down, you need to make sure that you have an optimized Google Merchant Center. Now, we have already mentioned this for the targeting reason, but there's a lot more than just targeting that the GMC is responsible for, right? Ultimately, the GMC also needs to get you clicks, right? You may be able to show your product to the right person, but is the right person going to click it? And that's where this additional layer of optimization comes in. First of all, as I've already mentioned, titles and descriptions. So not only do these titles and descriptions need to be optimized for the algorithm, which is what we previously mentioned, making sure that Google is showing to the right people, but we also need to make sure these titles and descriptions are optimized for people, right? When someone reads your title, does it make them want to click through? Does it show them an obvious benefit? Does it show them all of the details they're looking for? Does the image show them that as well, right? So make sure your titles and descriptions, first of all, are really high quality and they're made for people. They're something that a person would want to click on, not necessarily just a listing for a robot to, get the best SEO possible, right? And then beyond that as well, images and testing is a huge one. So when you are running e-commerce products and shopping campaigns, you obviously will have an image for your product, right? Now, this image can either be a lifestyle image, so an example of the product kind of in use in a person's hand or on a person or in a certain environment or in a lifestyle situation, right? Something realistic with a background of the real world and an example of the product in use. Or it could just be like a white background or a black background or a colored black background even, right? So you need to test between all of these different types of images. You need to test between the product in use versus a product in a white background versus the product in a certain environment versus a product with another specific angle, right? There's a million different angles you could approach this from. And you need to make sure that you're testing all of them, because there's a very good chance that some images and some environments will appeal to your customer more than others, right? Some products need to have a white background because they're sophisticated or luxurious, whereas some of them need to be shown in action in the image, so the customer knows how your product works and what it does and whether it works well. So you need to test all ranges of images to make sure that you're getting the very most out of your Google Merchant Center. Next up, additional product data. So are you fully filling out all of the product data in your Merchant Center listings? Make sure you are, because if you're not, Google will penalize you, right? It may not be a major penalty, but you do get benefits. You do get boosted in search rankings for having complete product data, and it gives you a much better chance of showing your products and also getting cheaper clicks. I know it all sounds a bit crazy, but genuinely Google really appreciates when you give them more data to work with. And if you fully fill out all of the additional product data in your Merchant Center, you have a much higher chance of getting clicks and getting conversions. So make sure you complete everything that you can in your Merchant Center. Next up, you want to make sure that you have a scalable, separated structure. This is a really big one once again. I see so many people who have a structure that just mixes everything in together and kind of hopes for the best. You need to be very intentional with your structure when you're running Google Ads to make sure that you are getting the most out of your campaigns, and every campaign has a certain purpose. That should always be the idea of a structure, is for every campaign to have a purpose. So the first thing which most brands get wrong is non-brand and brand separation. I probably talk about this in every single video I create on on YouTube, to be honest. There's so many accounts. Literally every single one I see doesn't do this right unless it's being run by a professional. This is making sure that you separate your new customer acquisition campaigns, so campaigns that show non-branded intent, so people not searching for your brand name, from your campaigns with people searching for your brand name. This is very important because they're two very different levels of intent. If you mix these kind of campaigns together, Google will get confused by the wrong signals. It's going to inflate your ROAS numbers. It's going to give you inaccurate CPAs and all that kind of stuff, which just isn't good. You want to make sure that you are separating your brand and non-brand traffic, so it's very, very clear how much you're paying for new customers and how much you're paying for existing customers. That's it in a nutshell, right? You do that through negative keywords mostly, and in PMAX campaigns, you can also do brand exclusions now, which is super helpful, and they help you exclude an entire brand. They usually work pretty well in the PMAX campaigns. So next up, thematic separation of products. So this is another big one in your campaigns. I like to use, if you have a really big product category, I like to have different campaigns for different product types, different categories, different margins. You need to separate your products somehow. If you group all your products into a single campaign, you're going to find that the budget is not going to be allocated to the right products, right? My favorite way to do it, and I think the best way to do it for almost every beginner, is to have two shopping campaigns if you are using shopping, or two search campaigns for search campaigns. And basically one of them in shopping, one of them is a bestseller campaign. So it only has your best-selling 3 to 5 products, and you push most of your spend towards that campaign. And then you have another campaign with all of your other products where you can be testing them to find potential winners to upgrade into your bestseller campaign. That's a really good structure for beginners, and it allows you to really leverage those bestsellers and get some initial data and initial wins without having to spend too much on Google. For search campaigns, make sure you're separating out different services, for example, different categories, different products. Once again, just make sure it's all separated into groups in a sensible and thematic way. Then you got top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel separation. You need to make sure that you're hitting every stage of the funnel in Google if you have a high budget. If you have a lower budget, I recommend just starting off with the bottom of funnel, middle of funnel, using search and shopping and just focusing on those really high intent customers, because that's the best bang for your buck. But I find a lot of accounts, they start to cap out with middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and they don't know where else to go. A lot of people forget that on Google Ads, you have access to YouTube, which is the largest video sharing platform in the world. And it allows you to get an enormous amount of reach through video. And not only that, but you also have the display network, which is pretty much like every website in the world as well, where you can show image ads too. So you have this opportunity to expand into video and image ads. And if you create genuinely high quality creatives, there's a very good chance you could get some wins on those platforms and networks by deploying into them, especially at a higher budget. So don't feel as if you have to be constrained into the middle of funnel, bottom of funnel trap with search and shopping campaigns. You can expand further when done right. Finally, effective campaign selection. Now this kind of ties into what I was saying just before, but you do want to be utilizing all your campaign types that you can at your given budget level, right? And that is important. You need to make sure that the timing and introduction is right. So I have another video where I basically walk you through the entire Google Ads funnel and how it works and when you should be introducing certain campaigns. But in a nutshell, you want to start with bottom of funnel search. So people who are searching for you already, bottom of funnel shopping, move into middle of funnel stuff, which is search shopping, PMAX potentially. PMAX is also bottom of funnel as well. And then finally, you want to move into the top of funnel when you have a higher budget, which is demand gen, YouTube, display, things like that, right? So you need to introduce these campaigns at the right time. If you start an account with just demand gen, nothing else, you're probably not going to succeed. It's going to be very difficult to get a profitable account. But if you start with bottom of funnel search, bottom of funnel shopping, it gives you that data you need to feed through to Google and then to take advantage of the demand gen and display network. And then you've got budget allocation. So make sure that you are allocating your budget in the right places. This is obviously easier said than done, but if you have a high performing campaign, you should be giving it a lot more budget than your low performing campaigns. And I know this sounds simple. However, I honestly couldn't tell you the amount of times I've gone into an account and seen one campaign is absolutely killing it, but it's not getting any budget, right? You need to give it more budget, keep ramping up the budget until you kind of hit a ceiling or the campaign starts breaking or any issues like that. Make sure that you're allocating budget to your highest performers and only allocate to the ones with a lower ROAS, lower performance when you're really trying to scale new customer acquisition and you know your metrics well and you can lock in on your metrics and understand that it is driving incrementality, new customer growth, and overall growth for the brand. So those are the 4 biggest categories that I would recommend you to look into and to fix and adjust if you're not seeing the ROAS you want in Google Ads. All of these changes that we deployed in this account led to this account getting a 332% increase in ROAS. So clearly these strategies work. Clearly they are not outdated either because these are pretty recent examples. So if you want to see results like this and increases like this, please feel free to book a call with me down below. I'm more than happy to try and help you out. We can just have a chat, discuss how you potentially grow your ads kind of a bit more, or if you want someone to manage it for you, I can also help you with that. That's all for me today. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I will see you in the next one.